In today's After Effects tutorial, I'll show you how to animate an infinite zoom like this one. Hi, my name is Manuel. I'm a freelance motion designer bringing you fresh animation and motion graphics tutorials every week. To follow along, you might want to download the project file. My comp is 240 frames long, based on 30 frames per second. Alright, let's get started. First of all, let's create a background solid with Command Y. And add a 4-color gradient. I stick to a purple, dark orange, brownish color palette. I would recommend to try and keep contrasts between the colors low. We drag one of the points to the center and turn that color black. A dark center and brighter colors towards the outside adds depth to our scene, which is exactly what we want. Adjusting the points a little. Let's set the jitter to 100%, which basically generates some noise and reduces color bending. And we don't like color bending at all. Anyways, we name the solid background. Now to the grid. With no solid selected, we double-click on the star tool, hide the fill, and set the stroke width to 2 pixels. Then we open up the path property and set the number of points to 4. The inner radius to 0, and increase the outer radius until it is bigger than the screen. Next, we duplicate the polystar shape within the contents property. Open the transform property and set the rotation to 45 degrees. I hide the shape paths here so that you can see the strokes. Then we add a gradient ramp to the shape layer, which we named grid, by the way. Set the ramp shape to radial and move the start point to the center. And the endpoint somewhere below the screen, maybe here. Again, from dark to bright to add some depth. With no layer selected, let's add a square by double-clicking on the rectangle tool. We open up the rectangle path property, release constraint proportions and set the size to 500 pixels X and Y. Let's name it square and set the stroke width to 30 pixels. We again add a 4-color gradient, set jitter to 100%. And this time I'll go for a much more shiny yellow, orange, red and blue color scheme. Basically it fits to our background colors, just brighter. Then I'll place the points around the square. Looks good for me. Let's finally animate this guy. Go to the beginning, press S to set a keyframe for the scale, and set it to 10%. Then we go to 60 frames and scale it way up, until it completely disappears. Let's select the 2 keyframes and adjust the speed curve. Make sure the snap icon is activated and edit speed graph is selected. Then we pull the first point down to 0 and at the same time drag the handle as far to the right as possible. Then we drag the handle of the second point as far to the right as possible. So the size increases really slow at the beginning and then very fast here at the end. Let's have a look. Seems good for me. We should trim the solid though. Now let's make it a loop by simply duplicating the shapes and moving them 20 frames to the right. Now we need to find the beginning of the loop. That's our end frame. At 59 frames it looks exactly the same. So 1 frame after that, at 60 frames, our work area needs to start. Let's check the speed. Looks great for me. Quick tip. The bigger the screen you want to play it on, the slower you should go. For a huge LED wall, this would be way too fast. To slow the animation down, you would move the scale keyframes further apart. Let's take care of the center. We duplicate the first square, move it to the top. Delete the gradient, add a black fill and stroke, and delete the second keyframe here, as we don't want it to scale. Let's move the endpoint to the end of the comp. The black shape blends in with our dark background. The squares now appear softly from behind the center shape and don't just plop in. I feel like we should add some more detail to the background. Let's add a bright red solid which we quickly name background detail. Move it down above the background solid and set the layer mode to add. Then we add a new mask by double-clicking on the rectangle tool. I need to make the mask path visible. Next we press Command T to transform it and turn it while holding Shift to rotate it exactly 45 degrees. Press Enter to leave the transform mode. Then we position the mask paths exactly on top of the diagonal grid lines. We duplicate the mask and position it like this first one, but on the right side. Finally, we press T to open the opacity property. Let's reduce it to 25%. That would be a nice basic loop. But let's add more stuff to make it really stand out. First of all, let's add some detail to the squares. We select square 2, the first one in our loop, duplicate it. I quickly change the label color. Delete the gradient, change the stroke color to yellow. Open the contents property and add trim paths. Now we go to the beginning, add keyframes for the start and end value. Set them to, let's say, 44 and 62%. Then we go to 100 frames and set them to 75 and 100%. Maybe you should set the stroke caps to round. Now the exciting part. We're going to add that detail to all the other squares. Duplicate the green layer, place it in the timeline above the next square, change the stroke color, use different values for the start and end points, and maybe change the offset as well. Let's go. I know it might seem a lot of work, but it adds some more movement and detail to the loop, which simply makes the result look better, so I think it's worth it. Important is, the first two and last two layers, which are split by the work area, need to be exactly the same to get a seamless loop. So I copy the first two green layers and add them here at the end. The first one, and the second one. Alright, not too bad. Let's take it one step further though, and open up a new space. We start by duplicating two squares in a row. The shortcut is Command D, by the way. Holding Command or Control while clicking on layers lets you select multiple layers. The first one is like the beginning and the second one the end of the space. Let's move them above the green layers. I quickly changed the name, space beginning and end. So let's add a white fill to both of them. And delete the color gradient of the end square. Then we use the shape of the end solid to open up the middle again, which means we have to change the alpha track matte of the beginning to alpha inverted matte. Let's align the endpoint of the space beginning, and we should move them below the other two squares as they're hiding the square strokes. Let's change the colors of the beginning into some kind of off-white color scheme with a little touch of blue. At some point it's good to interrupt your color scheme to keep people focused and basically watching. One last thing. We need to fill that space with some stuff, so let's duplicate the grid and move it above the white space. Let me hide the shape paths again. We don't need the gradient ramp and change the stroke color to black. We open the contents of the grid and duplicate the upper polystar shape. Open its transform property and rotate it 22.5 degrees. By the way, if you suck at math like I do, simply insert plus 22.5 degrees and After Effects does it for you. Then we select the bottom polystar, duplicate it as well and rotate it 22.5 degrees. Now we need to cut the grid out. Therefore, we use the set matte effect. Then choose the beginning as source. That's a reason why you want to name your layers, to quickly find what you're looking for. We duplicate the effect and choose the end. And this time we need to invert the matte. Awesome. Now it's on you to really show off and create all kinds of exciting variations of this zoom. On the left side I've added some videos you might like, so see you there. Subscribe to my channel on the right side and ring the bell if you want to know exactly when the next video is coming up. Thanks so much for watching. Hope that tutorial was useful for you all. See you in the next video. Bye!